Lisa Winkler, Mark Lappin, Janet Weissman. Who else is part of our team? Brittany Tupaws, our wonderful intern. Yay, over there. This is a project that looks at two big systems in our lives, the one that feeds us and the one that teaches us, agriculture and education. And we tend to think they're linked in important ways, and not always for the better. So this project explores alternative ways of growing food using perennials, and we imagine that we might also think about educating our young using more perennial perspectives. So, as all of you know, sitting right up here, we're looking at perenniality. But one of the things we like to do is tell stories and share what we're learning. And we started a press a few years ago. We have books and pamphlets, and we're happy to announce that we've just released 6 new pamphlets to add to the 5 pamphlets that we did last year. And why pamphlets? Because they are short, focused, easy to read, easy to distribute. They say something very clearly, and they are designed to move people to action. And pamphlets have been used. Here comes Lindsay Pontius. Hello, late. Radical pamphlets have been used throughout history by those who did not have control over the press or other levers of society to bring truth to power. And so we have been experimenting using the pamphlet method. We even have a soapbox that we could stand up on if we want. Lisa wants us to stand up on the soapbox. I need guardrails if I want to stand up there. So today we are going to have our student pamphleteers reading from their pamphlets and a couple of our community practitioners speaking from theirs. And just ask that we've got a kind of informal order. They'll come up, say a little bit about themselves, and then read their pamphlet. And if there's any questions, we'll ask. If not, we'll go to the next one. And I think we've got our good friend and colleague Matt Schlein, who founded the Willowell Foundation and opened Walden Project 25 years ago, and has written a piece about getting young people outside of the classroom walls. So, you want to come up, Matt? Let's give him a hand.
I'm excited for the soapbox. I always wanted to stand on my soapbox. What's that? Don't fall. I won't fall. Or if I will, it'll be some good slapstick comedy, keep you guys engaged. It's a real pleasure to see you guys for the second time this semester. It's so nice to see your bright, smiling faces. And now I'm in your haunt, which is really, really great. But before I read my piece, I just sort of want to share this story that I just got back from hiking the Camino in Portugal. And it's an amazing experience where really people from all over the world walk for a variety of different reasons. And the reason I want to share this story relates to what Bill was talking about moments ago. I met a man who had lost his son, and he was walking with his eldest son, and he brought with him on the trail a rock from his garden. And when he got to Santiago, the goal was to sort of take the burden and to place it down. But one of the things that he was talking about on his way to help make sense of, a tragedy that for me, I could hardly even fathom, was that he was going to go home from the trail, and he was going to go back to his ancestral property, and he wanted to create a perennial garden there. So this idea of life and death and like what endures, I think those questions are really, really important. And obviously you all are focusing on them in a really specific way within the class. but this idea of like, what are our roots and how do we find what endures? I feel like that those are questions that are timeless, that are beyond the semester, that they're lifelong things here. So I'm just, in that spirit, just really, really glad to be here and to sort of offer, sort of my best attempt at putting a little bit of a perennial root in the ground. And this is the piece I wrote a little while ago. And, thanks for indulging and listening. Thoreau famously observed, "Surely joy is the condition of life." While this may be true, discerning this amidst life in the 21st century is no easy task. Time and again, we eschew joy, preferring order, predictability, memes, and likes on our social media posts. In our quest for attention and linear perspectives with a clear beginning, middle, and end, we forsake surprise, mystery, and wonder. Nowhere is this calculus so evident than in our public school system. Following the dictates of authority, we allow our minds and bodies to be subjugated over and over to thousands of indignities, great and small. To be docile and compliant in this system gets you rewards, commendations, and badges of merits. To question this system leads to marginalization and demerits, as well as a reputation that follows you around like a dark cloud. Hiding behind the word education, the hyper-regulated panopticon called public school rarely finds a place for creative free thinking. Our world is hurting. Suffering in some form is revealed at every turn, and yet we are trapped in the wheel of endless pain, in part because of our slavish devotion to outdated systems, originally conceived to efficiently support workers and managers, preparing them for life and the needs of a future factory life. Meanwhile, millions of youngsters suffer silently, enduring their schooling with anguish, ennui, and confusion, being told that it is an essential truth to forsake your own idiosyncratic and singular heart, or else face a path of alienation. According to the CDC, more than 4 in 10 students, 42%, felt persistently sad or hopeless, and nearly 1/3, 29%, experienced poor mental health. In 2021, more than 1 in 5 students seriously considered attempting suicide, and 1 in 10 actually attempted suicide. We do the same thing to the caring teachers who populate these systems, where 57% who enter the profession leave within 5 years. The schools are a cauldron of anxiety and discontent. And so, we birth generations of anxious conformists, unable to think their way out of the challenges that manifest on both the micro and macro levels. And yet, it is this desire to listen to the suggestion of one's genius, despite external messaging saying otherwise, that allows for the hope and the possibilities that truly honor our place within the cosmos. And where better to start than with the younger generation? These times call for the authentic, vibrant, and real. I want this truth proclaimed to everyone. I want to shake the tree, wake up the somnambulant. I want to remind them of the truth in the tint of light on an October afternoon, or the prisms on a drop of dew, or the spider web at dawn in a meadow on a summer day, reminding us of the vast webs of connection which bind us to the creation. I want people to remember that their place in our culture involves more than their social security number. I want to tell this to everyone who strives to be the most authentic version of themselves. Victory, defeat, success, failure, our lives are bigger than these false binaries. I've been in the trenches of public education for the last 30 years, 24 of them as an educator in the peripatetic Thoreauvian tradition. I have eschewed comfort and predictability in the name of adventure and challenge. I've walked side by side with hundreds and hundreds of adolescents groping for meaning and a place in an apathetic world. I've been a gadfly who encourages my students to think for themselves, to realize that knowledge is not bound in a book or a lesson plan with handouts and defined learning outcomes. Rather, it lives when curious minds awaken to the complexities and dimensions of being alive in this particular chapter of humanity and our current journey to find balance and harmony with the larger ecological whole. Knowledge is everywhere if we are willing to look. As the aphorism says, you can't hide from the truth, because the truth is all there is. The laughter, the smiles, the questions, the looks of wonder, the smell of wood smoke, the voice of a student reading their original poetry, discovering the power of their voice, these are the outcomes I seek. I contrast this with the sterility of the climate-controlled box with fluorescent lights and rows that mirror the power dynamics imposed again and again. I see art, photography, and essays inspired by a connection with something more than just power, control, and petty hierarchies that justify themselves with assessments that fragment meaning rather than co-create. These responses are rejoinders in the system of control, the hierophants of predictability who gladly sacrifice life force for a checked-off box. I want to suggest that more is possible, that conformity and consumption lead to sterility and staid mediocrity. We need people to dream about brighter roads where success is measured with smiles and heart spaces. We need the broken educational systems to be identified for what they are and to seed ground in a new way of being that respects the integrity of the individual and the world that they inhabit, be they students, parents, teachers, staff, or administration. We need young people to feel hope instead of the quiet desperation that pervades their daily experience. We need systems to go eyeball to eyeball with the challenges of this moment, responding with compassion and wisdom. We need to delight in this creation, to ask why, to dream, to create, and to envision a future replete with possibilities and hope. To quote John Dewey, education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. Thank you.
Some people are guarding the pamphlets, but if you would like a copy, they're on these tables over here where they're free. So if you like what you heard, come over and take a couple and share them with folks that you know and love. Any questions for Matt? Question or two before we move on? I can tell you where he lives, so if you want to go there and ask him, you can. Okay. Excellent. Okay, all right. Because he has to leave soon, we're going to bring up our good friend, our co-founder of Courageous Stage, and the director of education at the Town Hall Theater, Lindsay Pontius. Thank you. You don't have to stand there if you don't want to.
I want to. Will I break it? Woo! Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Pontius, and I am. I've patched a life together for myself. Started out as an actor and theater performer and theater director, and then ended up falling in love and remembering a love for horses, and so had this farm that wasn't making any money. I chose all non-money-making things to put together. And then the next thing that makes total sense is education, right? No money in all three of those. But so much that has filled me and connected me to this planet. And I'm full of questions right now. I wish I had been walking with you, Matt. I mean, nice. Full of questions right now about how we as human beings be as humans. And I'm thinking the theater might be working now with a bunch of adults who actually want to try to act and understand what it means. That maybe there is something about the theater that can offer us a way to be. And so full of questions about why now? So I'm going to read this. This is about when at one point in my life, I started doing preschool teacher trainings at my horse farm. And because I had this idea that horses were teaching me how to be more of a human, and So I decided to do something with horses, and it started with teachers, and then it became veterans struggling with PTSD. But what is it that they have to teach us or tell us? So,
Can you read the title?
yes, it's called, oh yeah, the title's great. Somebody came up with that. Relationships Matter, Lessons from a Half-Ton Teacher. He came up with that part, yeah. When the bus filled with teachers pulled into my barnyard and the teachers began to understand that they had arrived at a horse farm, there was general excitement. A few who had bad experiences with horses in their youth groaned. One, named Sue, was overwhelmed with fear and fell to the ground in a heap of tears. She refused to enter the barn and remained outside as her colleagues greeted the horses stall by stall. I stayed with Sue and let her know that the day's activities were challenged by choice. She could participate or simply observe as she felt willing. Sue stood in the paddock where she could watch her colleagues take turns grooming a few horses in the rustic converted cow barn. Occasionally, she diverted her gaze toward the pastures and the sweeping vistas of Vermont's Green Mountains and the stretches of Lake Champlain. There was a clear blue sky with a slight breeze on that warm September day. Many have commented over the years on how the setting encourages a sense of peace, helping visitors to relax and to be present with the animals. After a while, Sue tentatively joined two other teachers while they groomed a dozing horse. I admired her bravery and curiosity as she brushed through her fears. Neither Sue nor I had any idea of the courageous act she would attempt later in that afternoon. But by the end of the day, we would all learn about a horse's capacity to teach us how to be even more and even better humans. For more than 40 years, I've had horses in my life. Mostly my horses are pets and partners, but I've always wanted to share with other humans the wisdom and gifts that the horses offer day by day and year by year. Now I use my herd to give workshops to groups such as veterans and educators about the profound experience of linking nurturing with nature. Sue and 16 other teachers had come to an in-service day they called Staff Mystery Fun Day, an annual event for the staff of a nearby children's center. They would board a bus in the morning, only the driver and the center director would know where they were headed and what they would be doing that day. This day, after they groomed horses and learned some leading techniques, the participants joined me in the arena for a team-building obstacle course to be navigated while blindfolded. There were no horses present for this activity. Everyone was quite game to play, and they took great care of each other. By then, Sue was laughing and cheering on her companions. Teaming up with an emotionally sensitive horse. During the lunch break, the teachers were divided into teams of 4 or 5. I assigned each team a horse. There was Team Pride, Team Yuli, and Team Hannah. I gave each team a picture of their horse and a description of the horse's challenges and behaviors. They were to read the information and strategize about how they might establish a relationship with their horse and take on the challenges of moving with the horse through an equine obstacle course. Sue asked, "Who will be blindfolded, us or the horse?" I assured everyone for this there would be no blindfolding. The teachers immediately engaged with the challenge. As they planned their approach, I visited each group, urging them to consider safety first for the horses and for the humans. They were to think about what success meant, given their horse's particular biography. They could use a halter and a lead rope. They could use carrots, rubs and scratches, praise, and the signals that I had taught them earlier in the day, such as come forward, back up, or turn your hindquarters away. Sue was on Team Hannah. Hannah's bio read, Hannah is a high-energy, sensitive horse. Her response to fearful stimulus is to snort, puff herself up, her fur literally stands on end, and then she runs back and forth, facing and roaring at the scary object or situation. She wants to trust humans and accept their leadership so she can be part of their herd, but emotions can get the best of her. When I first met Hannah, she'd been kept in a round pen for a day and a half with no food or water. Her owner at the time used the round pen treatment to tire her out and get her to stop running and puffing. The owner had tied several plastic bags that blew in the air to the rails of the pen, incorrectly believing this would desensitize Hannah and calm her down. It just made her continue to freak out. While it has taken lots of patience on my part and lots of deep breaths, Hannah has learned to accept and trust humans. Success, knowing when to quit. The obstacle course included 2 8-foot poles to back up between, a small jump, a station where the teams had to experiment with a proximity to the horse with a large yoga ball, an umbrella, and a plastic tarp, which could be introduced to the horse. All of these are potentially upsetting to my equine friends. Success would come from reading the horse and knowing when to quit. The umbrella doesn't have to open over the horse's head, the ball doesn't have to bounce off her back, and the tarp does not need to be walked upon to complete the course. Sue was brimming with ideas, and she met with her team. The strategies included using the language of touch to encourage Hannah to trust them. I reminded them just getting Hannah to the arena might be cause for celebration. Team Hannah blew everyone away. The team spent at least 30 minutes grooming Hannah. She emerged shiny and proud. They all placed their hands on her body as they walked her to the arena. Hannah swaggered with the confidence of a Hollywood star surrounded by her entourage. She was relaxed. Her strides were long and rhythmic. Her eyelids fluttered slightly over a soft focus. Each member took the lead to an obstacle. She smoothly backed through the poles and gently jumped the little cavaletti jump. Traveling to each obstacle, is that right? Yes. Traveling to each obstacle, Sue remained on Hannah's left side between her nose and her shoulder and looked like a bodyguard. When they reached the umbrella, Sue held it out while Hannah sniffed it. Sue flapped it a little. The second she sensed any tension, she retreated, and Hannah let out a little sigh and did a lick and chew. Licking and chewing is what horses do as foals to ask their mothers for milk. In an adult horse, a lick and a chew is a form of agreement or understanding. Sue seemed to read all the signs, and she and Hannah were truly in communication. When it was time for Sue to lead Hannah to the tarp, I held my breath. Hannah slowed her step and tensed her brow, her eyes wide open, her breath held, and then Sue walked out ahead of her onto the tarp and sat down. The team had decided not to use treats. Hannah sniffed, then pawed the tarp. Sue patted the tarp from her seated position, and Hannah walked directly to Sue and dropped her head in Sue's lap. Sue began to weep. I think we all did. But Hannah just hung with Sue as the team came close. Sue got up and they led the horse off the tarp and through the gate back to the barn. After the retreat, the Children's Center staff sent me a scrapbook with pictures and quotes documenting their day at the farm. Pinned in the center was a handwritten note from Sue. She described the personal issues she'd been going through at the time and explained how she'd been facing enormous burnout as a teacher. She was planning to take a leave from the center. But after her deeply meaningful encounter with Hannah, things turned around for her. She felt transformed physically, emotionally, and creatively. She wrote, "I felt proud that I had been a part in helping her succeed and overcome her fears. I now know that I'm a great teacher, and I still have that passion, and I feel confident that I will accomplish all the goals I have set for myself. I thank Hannah for giving me back what I thought I had lost. I now know that I'm a great teacher," said Sue. I know from my years of experience leading these workshops that the immediacy of communicating with a 1,000-pound animal brings our humanity and compassion to the fore. Educators worry about helping children in the classroom learn to self-regulate, but all the self-help articles, the social-emotional learning websites, the sterile classroom walls covered with color-coded pictures of plastic cards reminding students to be courageous, consider empathy, or practice active listening won't take the place of creating a relationship between teacher and student, human to human. It's the gift of reciprocity, like the one Sue and Hannah had, the gift of being all in, full of agreement and understanding on this small patch of earth. Thank you.
Any questions? Should we cover something? Pink. All right. Is Freddie here? I don't think Freddie. Hey Maggie, you want to go? One of the great features of our project is that we publish student writing. And Maggie Hannes was in our class last fall, graduated, came up from home today from New Jersey to read her pamphlet called A Guide to Going Primitive. Yeah.
I'm not going on the soapbox.
You don't want that?
No.
Okay.
Someone needs this. Okay. Okay, hi. I just graduated in the spring, and I was an economics major, and I wrote this pamphlet last fall when I was feeling very frustrated with the finance recruiting frenzy I saw going on around me, and meanwhile I was living in the local foods house and was taking this class and finally learning to fully embody what slow living meant to me, and I wanted more people to understand that. So here is a guide to going primitive. In high school, like many of my peers, I drifted around in a haze of self-centered, shallow ambition. At a time in my life when my goals were clear, measurable, and driven by external expectations, it was extremely easy to exist in this state. I knew exactly what I needed to do and how I should be spending my time. AP classes, ACT prep work, swimming to get recruited, and participating in just enough clubs to be deemed well-rounded. I saw every facet of my life as a resume booster. Though my high school experience was objectively laborious and tiresome, I had been raised on the myth that hard work and self-sacrifice were the virtues that led to happiness and success. So when the positive feedback loop of hard work and external rewards failed to bring me a real sense of fulfillment, I began to feel flawed. I promised myself that college would be different. The idea of a liberal arts education was incredibly enticing. For the first time, I would pursue knowledge for its own sake, studying subjects with no connection to my own material goals. When I arrived at college, however, I found the same focus on external success. The competition for resume building for perfection was far from over. This time, however, I did not give in to those same pressures that I had conceded to in high school. Instead, I saw these students as reflections of my former self, a constant reminder of the disordered mindset around success that had weighed me down in high school. I renewed my commitment to a better life. I began pursuing intellectual and extracurricular interests that genuinely excited me, built friendships with thoughtful and insightful people, and prioritized my time in ways that allowed me to explore these new interests more fully. My old framework of thought quickly began to crumble. All of the pressures that once drove me toward conventional success had nearly vanished. Though my college's intense culture motivated my shift towards alternative measures of success and a slower pace of life, I realized that most of the student body still exists within that go, go, go mindset. For these reasons, I feel that I am in a position to critique and identify the failures of the status quo mentality and propose solutions to help shift the culture. Reflecting the prophetic ideas of James Baldwin, a liberal arts education often presents the paradox that precisely at the point when you begin to develop a conscience, you must find yourself at war with your society. It is your responsibility to change that society if you think of yourself as an educated person. I believe that college students are heavily engaged in the ideology of optimization. Most of us are caught up to varying degrees in a neurotic culture of intense productivity and a relentless push to maximize our potential. From here on, I will refer to the shared obsession with optimizing every part of our lives, prioritizing productivity over personal fulfillment as life maxing. Life maxing culture takes on several insidious forms, and I will highlight some of what I've observed as its most troubling symptoms. Symptom number 1, selling your soul. As an economics major, I was constantly immersed in the concept of optimization. It's a core idea in economic theory, underpinning nearly every standard model used in the field. In my microtheory class, for example, we relied heavily on the optimization assumption, which posits that rational economic actors always act to maximize their utility. This framework not only shapes the econ department's curriculum, but also influences how many of my classmates think about their future careers. It's common to hear students talk about selling their souls to Wall Street or consulting firms after recognizing the potential financial rewards. This decision-making process is rooted in a sterile, rational optimization framework in which students decide that their best move is to maximize their potential income given their capabilities, connections, and prestigious degrees. When students decide to sell out and take high-paying, unfulfilling jobs, they often go through a process of intentional detachment, embracing the cognitive dissonance that comes with choosing income over passion. Our optimization culture encourages students to view their degrees as investments, with a high salary as the return they must maximize. In doing so, they not only set aside their true interests and aspirations, but also contribute to big money's insidious growth cycle that fuels the climate crisis. This narrow focus on maximizing income pushes many well-educated minds towards careers that prioritize profit over purpose, reducing their work to the hedonistic pursuit of money for its own sake. Coming from a college known for its environmental values and socially conscious curriculum, it's particularly disappointing to see graduates buy into this mentality. Symptom number 2, cheating, especially with artificial intelligence. I've witnessed firsthand how academic values are eroding as students succumb to the convenience of AI. Life-maxing college students, driven by incentives to achieve higher grades and produce polished work with minimal effort, have realized that AI can be wildly useful as an academic shortcut. As they realize these rewards from cheating, the temptation to misuse AI for further external gain grows, and this perverse incentive distorts the original purpose of education. Further exacerbating the issue is a growing sentiment among professors, too, that students should embrace AI to prepare for its inevitable role in the workforce. However, this argument, seeped in the sentiment of optimization and productivity, ignores the fundamentally distinct objectives of the liberal arts college experience as opposed to the corporate world. Unlike the workforce, where productivity and measurable outcomes are valued above all, the liberal arts classroom should be a space for introspection, experimentation, and genuine intellectual engagement. But by introducing AI, we blur these lines and allow the workplace mentality of expediency and outcomes to seep into the college environment, undermining the ethos of a liberal arts education and turning students into efficient task doers rather than well-rounded thinkers. When students focus primarily on outcomes and efficiency instead of the liberal arts inquiry and intellectual growth, the use of AI seems entirely rational. These tools have reduced the risk of being caught cheating to nearly zero, while the perceived rewards, such as academic success and a brighter career trajectory, remain highly attractive. The problem is that this culture of optimization has fundamentally distorted the purpose of a liberal arts education, making it feel almost unrealistic for students to abstain from AI on principle. It's troubling to see students who value academic integrity and genuine learning at the risk of being left behind by their AI-enabled peers who prioritize surface-level markers of intelligence over the learning process itself. Symptom number 3, disordered wellness culture. The life-maxing ideology is perhaps most visibly reflected in the wellness culture on campus. Students frequently lament how the school's active culture, one that celebrates perfectionism in nutrition and athleticism, often leads to toxic, unhealthy relationships with diet and exercise. In the spring 2024 semester, 64% of students here responded to a survey reported challenges with food or exercise habits, highlighting the pervasiveness of these pressures. The drive to optimize our bodies aligns closely with the broader pressures to perfect our academic and extracurricular lives. Recently, there's been a surge in the frivolous consumption of wellness products as students seek ever more ways to optimize their health, from taping their mouths at night to enhance nose breathing to wearing red light glasses to more perfectly align their bodies with their circadian rhythm. This endless pursuit of self-optimization and health mirrors the broader ethos of life-maxing across all areas of life. So the life-maxing culture is exhausting. At the heart of this drive for optimization is the message that no one is good enough as they are. How can we learn to accept our imperfect selves without feeling the need to optimize every aspect of our lives? The positive ideal I advocate for is what I broadly term going primitive. I believe that the issue I've discussed arises from an excessive focus on artificial goals in the absence of a genuine connection to the non-human world. To address these modern ailments, we must realign with a more primitive understanding of the connection between humans and the natural world. Cultural historian Thomas Berry illustrated this ideal of going primitive in his exploration of shamanic practice. He suggests that by reconnecting with the primal spontaneities and instincts inherent in our natural selves, such as play, wonder, and close interaction with the non-human world, we can experience what he calls an ascendance, awakening a deeper, more intuitive relationship with nature. By cultivating this capacity, what Berry terms the shamanic personality, we can think more clearly about our priorities and resist the human-centric impulse to constantly optimize and pursue endless growth. This way, we learn to listen to the natural world, fostering a consciousness that is intertwined with rather than disconnected from the larger universe. Other influential thinkers have echoed Thomas Berry's thought about a return to primitivism offers relief from the exhausting culture of optimization. Henry David Thoreau famously withdrew from the bustling commercial world to seek wisdom in the woods. In his essay, Walking, he observed the effects of this life-maxing ideology on his fellow townspeople, when he observed that, so it would seem, fewer and fewer thoughts visit each growing man from year to year. For the grove in our minds is laid waste, sold to feed unnecessary fires of ambition. These unnecessary fires of ambition represent the surrogate goals that people pursue relentlessly in the absence of a deep connection with nature, which Thoreau sees as the ultimate teacher. Rejecting the logocentric, separatist thinking that has shaped Western culture since the time of Plato and Socrates, Thoreau looked to nature for inspiration and guidance. Going primitive means embracing idleness, whimsy, and reconnecting with nature, practices that serve as the perfect antidote to the epidemic of relentless optimization. I have a few recommendations for bringing this spirit to the college experience. First, spend more time vegetating in the dining halls. Let yourself enjoy long, unhurried meals with friends, savoring the pleasures of food and conversation and undistracted by the speed of life. Take slow, aimless walks around campus, especially the naturally vegetated areas on the edges. Find a tree, sit beneath it, and read to it. Gather local fruits and vegetables and make a pie or a meal to share with others. Play outside, dance, and set unstructured time as a daily priority. Sure, your friends and classmates might think you've gone a little off kilter, but you're better for the experience and may even start a conversation. As you adopt these and other simple practices, it will begin to feel more like a lifestyle, and you'll begin to discover that going primitive is really nothing more than reclaiming your creaturely humanity, and you won't want to go back.
Questions? Are you going permanent down in New Jersey?
I'm kind of back on the hamster wheel now.
You back on the hamster wheel? Wow. I guess you're
But
back.
I should tell you about it, because I feel like I was really moved out last year, but
Can you hold up Maggie's pamphlet, just so people can see which one it is behind you too? And Brittany designed the cover, so. All right, how's everybody doing? You can get up and move around, stand up, get some cider, do whatever you got to do. Very happy to have our good friend and colleague Rachel Edwards read from her essay called Closed for Business.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to try the box.
You
Yeah,
think
just,
it's that where you need it?
Oh, yeah. I think, here we go. Accommodate for short people. All right. Ooh, I think I'm a little nervous. So thanks for having me. Not too much to say as a prelude about myself. I think you'll get a sense of me through the writing. However, I do want to just appreciate all those of you, Lisa, Bill, and the whole New Perennials team who have made this possible for me and us all. And that sense of interconnectedness is actually a theme of the writing. So the experience of the pamphlet is a reflection of my message, closed for business. I remember the chaotic whirlwind of late Friday afternoons in the household of my childhood. My family is getting ready as T-shirts are exchanged for button-down shirts and ties, cleats and sneakers switched to dress shoes, jeans and sweatshirts become skirts and blouses. When we finally arrive at Temple and take our places in the front pew, I'm nested in between my mother and father, in line with my 4 older brothers and sister. It's as though the jade green velvety carpet of the sanctuary becomes the common ground beneath our feet. Once dispersed in the comings and goings of the week, we're now gathered and conducted. The rabbi pronounces, "All rise," and our attention syncs up and joins in with the whole congregation. In a harbor of collected silence, my senses attuned to the rustling of Siddurim pages, the rhythmic bowing of heads, and the flickering dance of the Ner Tamid hanging over the bima. Even if we could talk, there's no need for words. I gaze up to the domed ceiling of the sanctuary as if looking to the night sky. This was Shabbat, resting in quiet reverence when my sense of wonder with the ineffable began, when a sense of something much bigger than me was as near and palpable as the snug fit of my 5-year-old feet inside freshly polished black and white saddle shoes, and as reassuring as the cadence of holidays and rituals celebrated throughout the year. Back then, in the 1970s Connecticut suburb of my youth, many stores and services were either closed either on Sundays or on the Sabbath. The habits of production and consumption would predictably slow down or stop altogether, and the sense that it can wait or we can do without was sewn into our mental familial fabric. With cars resting in the driveway, the abundance of staying local became revelatory. The backyards of friends who lived within walking distance were the mainstay for imaginative play until the sunlight began to dim, and as if following a compass pointing true north, we'd head home as white linen napkins, porcelain dishes, and fragile glassware were taken out of the wooden hutch and set around the candles on the kitchen table. Taking our places, the movement of the day melting away in tempo with the wax gently dripping down the candlesticks. Within the singularity and sustenance of being together and sharing food, it seemed as though I didn't need much of anything else. Fast forward 50 years, a landscape of change has overwhelmed us, uprooted tradition, and swept us into a fast-moving current of busyness. We're now consumers plugged into a worldwide digital social matrix and marketplace that's open 24/7. With the click of a button, we can work, sleep, hard to sleep, work or shop, socialize, attend classes, check the news and weather, locate our children, pay our bills, and be entertained and engaged at any time, day or night. In the race to keep pace within this digital space, we've become captivated by the outward doing, going, and getting of things inside a manufactured, artificially sweetened world where personal preferences and objective perspectives are reinforced and amplified. It's so easy to get caught up in swells of urgency and impulsivity. It's so hard to turn off. And while there's no doubt that the World Wide Web is a profound technology and the potency at our fingertips is extraordinary, a tool's powers and effects are only as good as the minds of its users. How can we possibly manage to digest densely packed news feeds, assimilate and make meaning of the vast bombardment of images and ideas crossing our visual and mental screens without suffering from a kind of indigestion and inflammation? How do we avoid the accompanying side effects of worry, anxiety, exhaustion, and general feelings of unsettledness? All the while, our ever-increasing to-do lists colonize our mindscape and keep us striving and always in a hurry. I've asked myself, how am I typically filling up, feeling flooded with so much to do and the urgency to get it all done, overlooking the moments when enough is enough? I see unsettling patterns everywhere, from people feeling increasingly too busy to enjoy life, to the Surgeon General's warning that adolescents face profound risk of harm from exposure to social media, to the growing habit of doom scrolling in our always on alert environment. What's the medicine for this dis-ease? Many of the world's faith traditions provide a powerful and seemingly simple remedy: rest. Take a break from the world, retreat, and invest in inwardly transformative and peacekeeping practices as a way of living graciously and harmoniously in the world. Practices such as meditation, contemplative arts, and mindful movement, as well as ritual and prayer, are chances to unplug, take refuge, and root our attention in place, reconnecting us with the inner sanctuary of equanimity and ease that's within us all the time. Paradoxically, to disconnect from our business as usual in order to embody this grounded state of mind is an act of radical activism. It requires willpower, discipline, and humility. For when we're accustomed to going and getting and making things happen out there, it's revolutionary to turn against the flow of societal expectations, conventional beliefs, and our own deeply ingrained conditioning. It takes courage to step out of the fast-moving current. Consider this pamphlet, Closed for Business, as your invitation to take that step. Join the revolution and find your sanctuary. And when you do, within this harbor of wonder, every time, whether it's a well-timed break within a workday, a daily practice, a one-day-a-week refrain, or a periodic sabbatical, you will be replenished by an unconditional nurturance, opening to an awareness and sense of belonging that you never need purchase, go after, win over, prove yourself worthy of, or try to create. And this belonging belongs to us all. You and me and everything in between are part of one grand interdependent process of creation. Sanctuary by the river. One summer morning, I approached the pull-off to Eagle Park along River Road, named for the New Haven River, ambling along the stretch of winding road that connects the towns of Bristol and Lincoln, Vermont. There are a few cars already parked, and I see people walking over to the special spot near the water, a small campground surrounded by stands of hemlock and maple, clover and fern, sunlight and clouds. Knotweed is blooming along the banks of the river, which, with my deliberate approach, is speaking shh, as if just to me, for I'm sufficiently filled with a cacophony of mental chatter, discursive thoughts darting to and fro, worrying about this and that, caught up in frustration for one thing and regret for another, fragments of fear-filled stories swept up, billowing around like a windstorm, blowing over dried earth, lifting dust into the air. Showing up at the park is not only a chance for retreat and replenishment, but it is also an act of kindness. Extracting myself from my own version of householding busyness, pushing myself out the door for a chance to allow the winds to calm. Ever grateful to be joining my friends as if we were meeting at one of the many swimming holes along this same river for a dip in the clear current. Yes, we've come to immerse ourselves, yet it's Tai Chi Chuan we're here to practice. Like any ritual, there's what's happening on the outside that may look the same, and then there's what's transforming within. The dust is settling. Machinations are disintegrating as fertilizer into the supple, forgiving earth, and all the knotty problems I'd been weighing begin to unravel as the math of my deliberation is held immediately accountable against the immeasurable sky. With every step and turn we're taking, the pivoting of each heel might as well be the earth rotating on its axis as we're moving in confluence with birdsong and the gentle rustling of leaves and continuously flowing water.
Mistake about sleep, but it occurs to me that, our sleep is affected. I do practice Chinese medicine, and so many people, I'm a good sleeper, but there's an epidemic of sleep uncivilness. So the fact that I forget where I sort of slipped, but it was not, I think, an unconsciously effective slip, because we can be so busy while we're sleeping. So this 24/7 plugged in can mean our sleep is not restful. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So thank you very much.
All right. If you're hearing some themes, I think you're right on to something. A lot of our pamphlets are about slowing down, putting down the roots. We talk about our radical pamphlet series. And we use the word radical in its original meaning, which is at the root or rooted. So we want our pamphlets to teach us how to root down into the soil, into the communities where we live. To do that, we need to slow down and think a little differently. We're going to continue with another student presentation. Freddie? Freddie?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Freddie Alfonso Frank. Junior now?
Yeah.
Junior. Was in our class last fall. And he's got a beautiful pamphlet called Education Uprooted. There are no winners in a learning base.
Yeah. Thank you. All right.
You don't have to look it up if you want.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to get to the mic. All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Freddie, and my pamphlet is somewhat of a critique on the U.S. education system through the lens of perennialism. I'd like you to imagine a plant, a maple sapling to be specific. It sprouted from a healthy seed and grows strong. It has everything it could possibly need: fertile soil, plenty of rain and sun, allowing for productive photosynthesis, and plenty of plant neighbors in a vibrant woodland community. But there's a catch. Each and every day, this small sapling is uprooted from the earth and replanted somewhere else, entirely new, alien, and different. And while this new home still has bountiful nutrients and plenty of sun and water, there is no way for the sapling to develop a stable foundation and root system to grow upon. Eventually, the caretaker of this young tree becomes impatient with its inability to grow. They begin pouring harsh, toxic fertilizers into the soil in hopes of jump-starting the poor tree. They prune all branches and limbs that show even the slightest sign of brown on the leaves. Of course, this has the opposite of the intended effect. The last of the poor sapling's leaves begin to shrivel and dry. The already struggling root system, burned from the overload of harsh chemical fertilizers, is no longer able to provide the branches and leaves with the proper nutrients. The sapling is wilting at an even faster rate now, and yet still, without fail, it is lifted from its home and it has gotten to know for a minuscule 24 hours and been placed somewhere completely foreign. Eventually, the last of the once baby green leaves floats to the ground, The remaining branches stiffen and crack, and the innocent and eager sapling becomes lifeless. While this may seem like a dramatic or exaggerated analogy, it describes almost perfectly the experience of millions of students in modern-day classrooms. Just as the poor sapling above is ripped from its earthly home day after day, students are ripped from their shallow understandings of complex topics covered in less than an hour. An hour. Think about how long it takes for a tree to settle its roots into the ground. How can we expect the human brain to sink its roots into alien material in less than an hour and then be able to move on and learn something completely new the next day? Picture a room full of students eager and motivated to learn, vigorously scratching out notes in an attempt to keep up with the teacher who, in the same vein, is attempting to keep their class on the rails of a supersonic curriculum. This is a common experience, particularly in the world of STEM. Even students who are motivated to jump through the hoops of fast-paced learning often find themselves 10 minutes behind their teachers and racing to get down the contents of the blackboard before it's all swiped away. How can they and their less motivated classmates soak in this constant barrage of new information while they scribble down formulas with no real understanding of what they mean or refer to? The game of homework becomes the work of decoding scribbled example problems and definitions that they barely manage to get down, while pleading with their brains to retrieve the jumbled memory of steps the teacher had demonstrated in class. Then comes the exam. Many students struggle with the pressure of timed testing, yet another planned and intended byproduct of a rushed education. Not only do students have to rush to get a hold of their understanding, they also have to rush to show their understanding. And of course, if you can't work at the speed of sound and the test comes to an end before you even had the chance to look at all the problems, then you must have not have understood the material, or so the assumption is made. And it would be comical if it weren't so painful to the test takers. The frustrating and demoralizing part of this testing system is the privileges given to students who need extra time. Just because you can't empty the contents of half a semester of understanding into a single class exam doesn't mean there is something wrong with your brain. We don't need excuses from doctors. We need learning that lets us grow like saplings. It's nothing less than tragic to think of how many beautiful minds have been kept out of certain fields because they couldn't successfully rush through a test. Two simple truths arise from the above observations. First, modern education favors a very specific type of brain that can take in information quickly for the purpose of spitting it back out on a test a few weeks later. Second, and much like the sapling that began the story, students and humans in general are not equipped with this type of brain. But even if they were, why should learning, which is certainly a type of growth akin to the growth of a sapling, be something that is rushed? Furthermore, is it even possible to rush learning, or does that simply lead to misunderstanding? The experience of far too many students and teachers certainly point to the latter. And who decided that linearly designed curricula were the right way to teach? Linear curricula completely disregard the fundamental function of the brain in receiving, processing, storing, and retrieving information. It is no wonder that students forget the skills they learned throughout the school year when they were acquired in less time than they actually spent in class. To an observer unaccustomed to such a system of education, this would likely describe an unhealthy, ineffective, and stressful, and even toxic way to grow the next generation and equip it for success. What might the observer offer as alternatives? To begin, they would recommend doing away with the one-and-done approach to introducing new material, where students learn one piece of material and then another and another in a linear sequence, leading to a final test, which requires students to relearn earlier parts of the sequence. Of course, relearning is used ironically here, since if students really learn the parts of the sequence, there would be no need to relearn the material. Wouldn't it be better for learning and the learner to restructure curricula in favor of allowing assignments and problems to build upon one another in a way that incorporates all the skills learned throughout the semester in each assignment? It is important to understand that this system is not the same as simply combining problems from different chapters of the textbook in one assignment. While that could still prove helpful, it is usually more beneficial to weave together several different learned skills into one problem, demonstrating how they relate to one another and thereby deepening the understanding of their use. An important aspect of this approach requires actively slowing down the process of learning. To truly sink its roots into a subject, the sapling-like brain of a young person requires repetition, variety, and interconnection. Most importantly, it requires time. By spreading out the exposure of new material in the curriculum, students are allowed and encouraged to spend more time uncovering any confusion and deepening their understanding. Applying new skills to real-world situations or relating new learning to past material helps develop more neural pathways and allows the education process to escape the vacuum that so often starves it of oxygen. Learning is akin to growing, and neither can be rushed without damaging the deep natural processes that have governed learning and growing from the start. And since there is no way to speed up time without some negative consequences, there is also no way to speed up learning without some negative consequences. Another benefit to slowing down learning is that it helps alleviate the pressure related to falling behind and the stress it produces. In what world does someone work best when they are put under time pressure that is not calibrated to the problem being solved? It is significantly less stressful for students to relax and take the time needed to make certain that they have uncovered all their misunderstanding when they aren't racing to finish. They aren't meant to feel that they lost a race, and they develop problem-solving skills that will serve them well into their future. Our elders know these lessons well. They know that some, maybe most learning takes a lifetime. Lifelong learning was the norm for them, not the exception. What happened? Today's students are resigned to seeing learning as a chore to be completed as quickly and efficiently as possible so they can graduate and celebrate their freedom from learning this way. If we were honest about it, many of us would admit to a sense of relief at finishing our education. That should raise red flags for educators, parents, employers, and students who sense that this is not the best way to learn. Let's demand learning that excites rather than demoralizes, that is calming, not stressful, that applies to the actual world rather than disconnecting us from it. When all those aspects come together, I am certain students will learn to love learning and want to continue beyond the classroom walls and laboratory benches. Let's change the schoolhouse narrative and broaden and deepen its perspective. If you struggle to learn course material, not necessarily because the material is too challenging, but because the pace of the course is too fast, make your experience heard. Don't automatically ask for accommodations to succeed in a learning system that is broken and inherently harmful to learners. Demand change. Nearly everyone can learn anything with time, the desire to learn, and the mentoring of those who teach for understanding and joy, not test scores and speed trials. Learning is a long, magnificent journey, not a bleak, breakneck race to understanding. Stop uprooting your brain. Let it take root, grow, and learn at a creaturely pace as it was meant to do and to be. Thank you.
Questions? Ready?
Sure.
This question from Martha. Would you consider sending your pamphlets to President Malcolm and the strategic planning group that's working on the liberal arts curriculum?
Sure. Yeah.
It occurs to me that Maggie's would be suitable also.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good idea. Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, we got a couple more, and I know our class has to leave at 4:15. So a few more minutes. So I think we'll bring up Max, student in our class. New Perennials published an anonymous pamphlet last year, so I've asked Max to read this anonymous pamphlet. So get that mic to where you really want it. And then we'll bring up Aisha, and I know this. You folks can stay or go at 4:15, but this, I want you to hear Max, because, you know, he's one of us.
Hello, I'm Max, for those of you who don't know me. I'm very excited to be here because I don't get to read pamphlets very often, or ever for that matter, so thank you for listening.
What's the name of it?
Yes, the pamphlet is called The Plant Speak Papers. So. Dear neighbor, the irony is not lost on the authors of this pamphlet that it is printed on the pulped remains of our kin. But, as it is still a durable format for conveying information in your language, we have chosen it reluctantly. We may be anonymous to you as individuals, but our extended family feeds, fuels, clothes, heals, houses, beautifies, entertains, and allows you to live at all thanks to a long line of our ancestors and elders who preceded your ancestors by 460 million years. If it helps, think of this number as a 46,000-year cycle that has occurred 10,000 times. We oxygenated the atmosphere and creatively destabilized it to make a habitable paradise, not just for us, but for other life forms, including big-brained, bipedal, fire-making, opposable-thumbed folks like you. 500 million years is a pretty good run, but it didn't prepare us for the likes of our most precocious, arrogant, and destructive adolescent animal offspring. You enjoy the fruits of our labor with rarely an attribution or thanks, all the while consigning us to the lowest rungs of life as brainless nutrition machines. Vegetative souls, as one of your wise elders called us long ago. Nor did it prepare us for how, with so little common sense, you would cultivate a narrow few of our family to feed and adorn yourselves while naming the rest of us weeds. Despite these attacks and insults, it's hard to hate you. After all, you love some of us, the flowers, the grasses, the edible fruits and vegetables, and ancient groves of trees. And some of you are coming back around to recognizing our amazing talents and creative problem solving, community building, and communication. That's all well and good, but you only want to elevate us to your so-called level of intelligence and superiority. We believe rather that you need to become our students, to learn and emulate the curricular 3 R's we live by: roots down deep, relationships aplenty, and perennial rhythms. Here are a few ways to get started. First, stop calling so many of us weeds and invasives. Together, our family is very good at what we do, and we have a long record of success employing strategies that provide us with what we need and with plenty of excellent leftovers for others. And yes, we do recognize and admire the gardeners and farmers among you who take such good care of some of us, though we sometimes feel a little envious of the attention you pay our annual friends. If only it didn't come with so much weeding and the eviction of so many of us who are not food or ornamentals for you. Learn our names. You call by name nearly everything else in your lives, even cars, boats, and stuffed animals. Think of us as having stories, habits, personalities, and differences. We do. And that is because, like you, so many variables in our lives require us to make decisions that affect us as individuals. Even a few feet away from one another, we can sometimes look and behave very differently. Slow down. You're always in such a hurry, scurrying to meet endless deadlines and productivity goals. Don't be fooled. Our roots, leaves, stems, branches, and flowers are all in motion too, but with far more intention, grace, and deliberation than you seem to possess. Walk with awareness of your surroundings. The simplest way to slow down is to move in time with your beating heart. You'll discover that as you slow down and limit your spatial range, you will regain the time you always say you never have enough of. That sounds paradoxical, but try it. Review and rebalance your perennial annual ledgers. This one will take a bit to explain. To date, your clan has counted about 400,000 terrestrial varieties in our extended family. It might surprise you to also learn that more than 9 in 10 of us are perennials, defined as living for more than 2 years. The rest, 6% by some recent estimates, are annuals and biannuals, living just 1 or 2 seasonal cycles. We all play our parts and get along well enough. We certainly have different metabolisms and life cycles. We perennials have ways of holding our ground, adapting, getting along, and waiting it out for another day, another year, another millennium. Our annual cousins, on the other hand, must move quickly to produce seeds and flashy flowers. But they seem well contented with their single-season lifespans, knowing that their beauty is unsurpassable and that they are critical first responders and caregivers for the rest of their family when our homes are disturbed and laid bare. We can't say the same thing about most of you, at least in more recent times. For the last 12,000 years, your so-called civilizations have featured fractionally few varieties of the annuals in our family for the majority of your food. You've covered the planet with them while eradicating the rest of us, annuals and perennials alike, through plowing, weeding, poisoning the rest of us. Nutrient and water starvation also make room for your cultivated gardens, crops, and livestock. Worse, you have adopted annual lifestyles and calendars that maximize productivity and monocultures at ever faster speeds. Your children attend schools that mimic your farm fields and growing seasons. Same-age classrooms, sitting in rows while being graded and rigorously selected for the best and brightest varieties, with annual harvesting, or graduating, as you call it, to pursue a career, a word that means to run in a circle as fast as one can. You even create unrealistic stories of endless personal reincarnations or eternal heavenly rewards after death. But if we've taught you anything, it is that nothing lives forever. Even the 80,000-year-old quaking aspen tree and root system you've named Pando in a place you call Utah. We gratefully acknowledge the now desperate attempts to repair the damage you've caused to our planetary home, but frankly, they're doing nothing substantial to slow the rundown of the living, breathing commons you treat like your personal bank account, supermarket, and trash bin as you race around in circles. An ever smaller few of you are hoarding as much as you can, while the ever-increasing many of you starve, wander, grieve, and rage. We've seen this surplus scarcity behavior in your kind before, but never at such a large scale or with such ferocity. No one likes to be on the receiving end of an intervention, but we offer it in the spirit of urgency, compassion, and neighborliness. You don't have to go it alone. Some of your kind are still living the old ways and can help. And there are new efforts to grow perennial food systems, perspectives, and lifestyles. We'll be here no matter what you choose to do, whatever the outcome, and probably long after you're gone. We can't expect you to change overnight, but don't wait. Imagine perenniality, practice perenniality, celebrate perenniality. Feel the perennial beat. You're a natural at it. You really are, even if you haven't had much opportunity of late. If you can slow down long enough to sit and walk among us and your other non-human family as humble listeners, who knows what might happen. And if it helps, and because we know you like to put little phrases on your clothes, hats, and billboards, go plant yourself, please.
Those plants can get pretty rude. I know our class has to leave in a minute, but I'd like if we just wait like 4 more minutes. I want to have Aisha Tapaya come up and she's going to read a short pamphlet. It's channeling Henry David Thoreau's walking essay, but focused on cities. So please welcome Aisha. And then we're going to have one more pamphlet that I'll read for somebody else, and then we're going to call it. But if you have to leave, I understand. Thank you. Maybe come up a little bit more because I don't think I can pull that up. What?
Perfect. No, I think that's good.
Got it?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Aisha, and this piece was inspired by a class that I took with Bill last J-term, Walking Body, Walking Mind, in which we took different kinds of walks and really learned how to notice and observe and be in space and think about our footsteps and tracing them. And in it, we read a few different walking kind of texts, one of them being a piece by Henry David Thoreau that was published in The Atlantic in 1862, in which he writes about what it means to walk, and specifically how he walks to escape the world and to escape society and to find wilderness and to reconnect to wilderness outside of him. And it really struck me in that I don't think wilderness is necessarily so far away, and I think it exists in human beings and in everything. And most of the walks that I've taken have not been in pristine wilderness. And so this piece is kind of a long monologue of a walk that I took in my home of South Florida in Delray Beach. And is Thoreauian in style, but is a bit of a rebuttal. I wish to speak a word for the city, not for its steel and commerce, nor its measured grids and rising towers, but for the wildness that still breathes beneath its pavement and traverses its paths. I wish to see the city not as mere artifice, a triumph of human order, but as a landscape where nature still lingers, woven into the heavy air, the roots that break through concrete, the hush of waves pressing against the shore at night. Let us not think of the streets as mere corridors of industry, but as rivers of motion, where one might walk not only toward destinations, but also into a deeper presence, into the rhythm of wind through palm fronds, the scent of rain on hot asphalt, the sudden flight of an egret startled from its perch. I wish to make an extreme statement, if only to make an emphatic one. We can all be champions of the city as civilization, workers, keepers of culture, stewards of nature, but who will speak for the city as wildness? Who will say that to walk its streets is to move through a living landscape where we are not just citizens, but also creatures attuned to the tides, the hush of night? Thick, salted air lingers, coating every breath with the weight of the nearby ocean, stifling and alive. The streets, damp with the memory of an afternoon's rain, glisten under flickering light, each puddle a fleeting mirror to the sky's deepening indigo. The sidewalk bears its own quiet script, blackened gum pressed into the stone, errant shells carried from unseen shores, numbers scrawled hastily, now half forgotten. And beneath it all, the footprints of 1,000 wanderers, those who came seeking, those who fled, those who simply passed through, each step swallowed by time, yet lingering still, like whispers lost to the wind. A crash, a sudden discord in the city's slow symphony. Glass meets stone, followed by a burst of laughter, brazen and unburdened, as if the very act of breaking were cause for celebration. Street vendors call out, offering mango slices dusted with chili, their sticky sweetness mingling with the scent of fried plantains and gasoline. Murals, bold and sprawling, seem to exhale as night deepens, their colors softening under the dimming sky. Like the saunterers of the Holy Land, the city walker moves not just through space, but through revelation. The hush of an alleyway where ivy creeps and a green parrot alights on a power line, its sharp cry against the drone of traffic. In the city, between waves and skyline, the walker's mind is unshackled from the ordinary. To walk is to reclaim the wildness beneath civilization. It is to notice the golden orb weaver spinning her web, the ghost crab scuttling into the storm drains before dawn, the ibis picking its way through a gas station lot, unbothered by the engine's growl. The true walker does not let the city dull their senses, but sharpens them against it, finding within its architecture the wild forces still at work. The sidewalk is an afterthought, shade a mercy granted not by the builder, but by the banyan. To walk is to listen, to the drip of condensation from an overworked air conditioner, the distant roll of thunder thickening the air with its promise, the low murmur of a steel drum winding through the streets like a stream in search of its course, folding itself into the restless current of voices and passing footsteps. The walker follows the unmapped, the uncertain, perhaps westward, perhaps southward. The city is drawn for the planner's eye, but the walker reads between the lines, follows not the streets, but the scent of Cafe Cubano and frangipani dissolving into the morning heat. The slap of dominoes on tabletops, the sand-peppered breeze that insists gently on another way. We do not truly know a place until we have walked it. The road-bound traveler skims the surface. The pedestrian sinks into the soul of a city. In the city, to walk is to defy expectation. The streets were not made for us. The heat conspires against us. The city hums at the speed of capital, yet the true rhythm is found in the quiet shuffle of a solitary wanderer. To step outside is not just to inhabit, but to return to something innate, even in, especially in, the city. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. We have one more pamphlet, and I've been asked to read this pamphlet. It came to us from a not well-known organization called the Institute for All Growing Things. I'll just read what they're about. The Institute of All Growing Things is dedicated to the noble cause of championing flora in all its splendid forms, from moss to mighty oaks, zucchini to zinnias. The Institute believes every plant deserves a chance to grow and flourish. It was founded by ecologists, botanists, and plant enthusiasts following the tragic demise of the famed Clutchie Creek Sitka spruce in 2007. The spruce began as a seed in 1215 and was quite magnificent in its old age. Ruggedly sporting a 50-year-old scar from a lightning strike, it had attained a circumference of 56 feet and a height of 200 feet when two severe windstorms, intensified by climate change, sealed its end. So this is their announcement from the Institute of All Growing Things. Dear gardeners and farmers, we are writing with pressing news that may be difficult to hear. The government is about to impose sweeping changes to gardening as we know it and to many agricultural systems. An anonymous source in the agricultural sector has provided us with a copy of the official proclamation, which will be released within days. The catalyst for this edict is the so-called rampant proliferation of chaos gardening. This is a playful practice in which gardeners randomly scatter mixtures of seeds across the ground and then embrace whatever emerges. The government's newly formed Department of Uniform Disciplines, or DUD, is extremely disturbed by this, calling it depraved DEI, and has co-opted the term chaos for its own purpose. In the weeks and months ahead, there may be adjustments to this information. We will alert you to new developments as we learn them. So now, the announcement from the government is reproduced here. DUD decrees vital policy shift. As most people know, official government policies related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and gender identity have changed substantially and for the better. These changes have been adopted across broad segments of society, but not by all, most significantly not by the agricultural and gardening sectors. This has created substantial confusion across the nation and is circumventing the government's plan to scrub DEI from our national cultural scaffolding. To this end, the newly established Department of Uniform Disciplines is launching a program called Ending Chaos in the Nation's Fields, Farms, Forests, and Gardens. In addition to its usual meaning, chaos is an acronym for cheap array of obsolete systems. Effective immediately, all private and public gardens, forests, and woodlands and agricultural enterprises that receive public funds, as well as land-grant colleges and gardening, farming nonprofits, are expected to comply by eliminating obsolete and socially dangerous systems. The chaos program's primary areas of focus include diverse plantings, uncontrolled plant sexuality, and transplants or invasives. One big, beautiful field. Thank you. The many chaotic practices used to create diverse gardens and landscapes will no longer be supported. So-called inclusive gardens must be de-diversified. Mixed flower beds and kitchen gardens that grow assortments of produce must be changed in favor of orderly single crop cultivation or monoculture. For recipients of government funding, regenerative food production will cease, making way for superior methods. The days of picking dinner from the backyard or the back 40 are over. This is likely to cause temporary sadness for some, But that will be offset by improved purity measures more valuable than the ease of quickly harvesting fruits and vegetables. These new agricultural practices will be called One Big Beautiful Field and will focus on the issues described below. A key benefit derived from cultivation in accordance with One Big Beautiful Field is the ability to avoid cross-pollination between different varieties, which can create deviant forms and the loss of genetic purity. For example, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, and broccoli all belong to the same species, Brassica oleracea, and can easily cross with one another with the result of being less desirable from the original. The offspring have more loose, flavorless leaves and less of a heart center. By the third generation, the heart is mostly gone. These valued crop varieties were developed over generations of careful stewardship, and they should not be diluted or destroyed by people just, quote, having fun, quote. Cultivating a big, beautiful field also helps the grower identify and eliminate invasive and repulsive transplants. See below. So, first, plant sex. Going forward, there are now only 2 recognized plant sexes, male and female. Unfortunately, 2 other forms exist that must be reckoned with, bisexuals and hermaphrodites. Bisexual plants, scandalously harboring both pistils and stamens on the same flower, are indiscriminate in their reproduction and are no longer welcome in our uniform fields. Hermaphroditic or monoecious flora have both male and female flowers on the same plant. These are prolific breeders and should not be grown. To assist growers, a list of undesirable plants can be found at go-cleanupyourplot.com. The undesirables list includes apple, cherry, and olive trees, roses, squashes, sweet corn, and Kentucky bluegrass. Approved species include asparagus, white ash, yew shrub, aspen tree, bayberry shrub, ginkgo bilboa, ornamental kiwi vine, spinach, and swamp tupelo tree. Misfits. Cleaning up plant sexuality in agriculture presents a dilemma that must be mediated and regulated. The majority, 90% of all plant species are either bisexual or monoecious. Fewer than 1 in 10 are separately sexed, male and female, dioecious. Unfortunately, most of the food people eat is not dioecious and therefore not on the approved list. A pitiful disaster that has been allowed to fester for decades. The government is working closely with agencies throughout the country to develop a process for reviewing and permitting specific non-conforming plants. After weeks of comprehensive hearings and review, some bisexual plants have been approved, notably pears and peas. A separate procedure has been developed for species from the monoecious groups. Currently under review are wheat and corn. Any approved deviant must be closely monitored in ground so that it does not spread past designated locales. For more information about flora reviews, visit chaos.trendingnews. Transplants. Invasives must be eradicated. Anything that blows in on the wind or is dropped by a bird or is revived after periods of dormancy must be removed. Invasives are wily opportunists lying dormant until conditions favor their spread. In diverse garden settings, they can hide, blending into the flora nearby, masquerading as dominant plants. These present special challenges to growers who must locate them visually and pull them out one by one. But in the big, beautiful field, they are more easily spotted and lethal removal techniques more easily employed. Beautiful boundaries. Creating separations between plant communities is encouraged. Separations can be roads, walking paths, mowed flat areas, or spaces covered with gravel. Nothing represents order like established boundaries. Paths give a manicured, planned look to the area and ensure that plants remain in their place. Seed saving. Despite long-standing agricultural tradition, saving seeds for subsequent seasons is discouraged to prevent inadvertent hybridization. Future seed banking will be regulated and monitored. Resources. Growers seeking guidance for ending garden chaos should contact their local golf course. Here's a quote from a Dud official. Imagine having a glorious wedding ceremony on an expansive, beautiful lawn of buffalo grass, with an adjacent garden overflowing with asparagus that will be served at dinner, along with wine creatively pressed from wild fox grapes, usually used for jelly. End of government announcement. Final note from the Institute of All Growing Things. We have established a hotline for anyone needing immediate assistance or just someone to talk to. The line is open 24/7 and is staffed with horticulturalists and grief counselors. Please call 555-WTF to WTF and follow the prompts. We will reach out soon with advice about how to resist, as resist we must. It's signed L. Davids, Chief Communications Officer and Chaos Emergency Management Coordinator. And it ends with a quote from a farmer who saw an early draft of the government announcement. The next time you want a sandwich with lettuce and tomato, good luck. The bread will be made from dry, desiccated spinach, and the tomato will be a figment of your imagination. I have no clue where the lettuce will come from. That's it. Because we like a little laughter once in a while. All right, there are more. Pamphlets are free around that table, not being guarded by anyone. Probably a little more cider, or maybe that's gone. Special thanks to Joe DeFelice for filming this and recording this for us. We'll have this up on our website, or a version of it soon. Sorry that not all the pamphlets got read because we're kind of out of time. So thanks to everybody, Lisa Winkler, my colleague Mark Lappin, Reagan Aberhart, who's not here, Paul Dom, who's not here. See some friends here too. Happy to stick around for a few minutes. So thanks everybody. Take care. Can't keep the give without getting paid. Thank you.